Hey, good morning, everybody. BDO 44 coming at you with another video. Fresh morning. Not even out of bed, as you can see. Everybody is, I trust, having a fantastic start to their day, or whatever time you watch this, of course, in the future. Hope it meets you well. So, what's on my mind this morning? Well, I saw Kyrie Irving's post on IG last night, and it was real inspiring. Of course, he was showing us that a picture of him from back in the day. He said he had a vision back in that time, and as I always do, I paraphrase. He was essentially saying, to all those who believe in him, uh, you know, thank you, keep going, that kind of thing. Manifest, your visions, and let's break these generational curses. And I felt that, man. I definitely felt that because I'm one of those people right now who's in a space where I'm trying to do so much, but none of it's manifesting into success of any kind. But I'm having a great time doing it, nevertheless. I'm not exactly pushing for it to be successful, but I am pushing for the practice of making it something that I'm good at, the various things that I do. The practice and overall perfecting these different crafts. So, yeah, man, I'm in the midst of trying to manifest that myself in my own little ways, and then from there, hopefully, break some curses, man, some generational curses. Um, within myself. And if I can't, necessarily break those curses myself, so to speak, then to speak into this camera and hopefully help others uh, find that within themselves to kind of do the same and fight those battles and manage whatever way they can, in believing in themselves, not second guessing themselves, things of that nature. I definitely vibe with that message. So, um, with that being said, we also saw that Phil Handy had commented underneath that post, and he put hashtag La Familia. Now, of course, La is us. Now, he could have been talking about something totally different. I don't know if he and Phil Handy know each other from way back. I assume they do. I think from Cleveland, as a matter of fact. I'm pretty sure Phil Handy's from that whole team. So I'm pretty sure he and Phil Handy are very familiar, if nothing else. I think they close though, if I'm not mistaken. Someone might have mentioned that to me that they got history. So that could be not necessarily him representing the LA Lakers and saying that, but more so representing himself, on his friend's post. So I'm not really sure the dynamic, but what I can say is it got Laker Nation fired up because Phil Handy is obviously one of our assistant coaches, somebody we retain going forward. Um, and we're not only that, but we're all really excited about him, just in general. He's doing a fantastic job with the summer league. He's been a great presence since he got here. All of the players tend to take well to him, and all of the complaints that we've had about coaching and things like that, it's been pretty much unanimous. None of Laker Nation feels that way about him. We didn't even include him in that, to be completely honest with you. All the complaining we always did, oh, this, that, the third. But we always made sure we said, yeah, but Phil Handy, Doc, nah, don't worry about him. We good. We want him to stay. So, that's also pretty encouraging given the fact of who he is, and that he has so much support here. Um, him commenting underneath Kyrie's post is huge for us. It's huge for us. So that's how we're looking at it. Everybody's really excited about that, including myself. And we're at a space where myself on this channel, I believe in his talent. You know what I mean? He's saying, for those who believe in him. If you follow me, I'm very much a fan of his work, and not only that, but since all the talk about him becoming a possible Laker, I've been studying more of his work. And I've been studying more of his game. I think that's more important for me. The thing about me is obviously being a Laker fan in the era that he came into the league. This is how this is gone. He was a Duke guy. I hate Duke, like literally hate him. But he didn't play much there. So when he first came into the league, I heard he was like the first overall classman. But I also understood he was hurt, so I couldn't, really say I knew anything of Kyrie Irving. But the fact everybody was saying he was the first overall pick, I'm like, well, he has to be really good. You know what I mean? Obviously, but it was one of those situations where they were saying, well, he's hurt, but when he gets back, his game is undeniable. So I'm like, all right. And he gets drafted to the Cavs. I didn't like the Cavs at the time. It was a whole situation back then where I'm a Laker fan. The Cavs was the new kids on the block. You got the LeBron James dude. He's come through and pushed us out the way. Now he and the Spurs in the finals and all of this, the third. And so my thing was, I wasn't a big fan, but I watched what Kyrie was doing and, started seeing how he was dancing as LeBron had left. That's how that went. He came in, Braun left at the same time. That's how, of course, went. So even though the Cavs weren't very good, got a glimpse of what this dude could do. You're like, oh, this is an extremely talented person, like straight up. But of course, as the time progressed, playing for Golden State, playing for Cleveland, it's like, for me, I wasn't a Cleveland fan. I was always leaning toward wanting to see them, not win, more or less. It's so, and at the time I worked at ESPN Zone. I had a friend of mine who also was a big Cleveland Cavaliers fan. So me and her would go back and forth. And so I wasn't going for nothing they was doing. And then fast forward to that, of course, they traded him to the Celtics. Laker fan. Couldn't appreciate him. And he got traded to Brooklyn. The whole situation wasn't necessarily Laker friendly. We didn't really care. And me personally, I wasn't a fan of the trio. And I know they themselves love that James Harden, KD, Kyrie. I didn't love the trio. For me personally, I wanted them to have a very talented big in between two of the three of them. I didn't care which two it was, although KD, I think, would have to be the one, of course. At the time, you're going to value him first, but it was either Kyrie or James Harden. But all three of them, I felt with those three max contracts and not talented enough bigs and guards, I just never believed in the vision. I believed in the trio, they could make it work. But putting the right stuff around them, I didn't think was possible with their contract levels. So that was always my thing. I knew that they were good enough to win, and it got to a point where I really was believing in what they were doing. But from a team building perspective, I just thought the fit was something I didn't necessarily believe in. So these are all the different situations Kyrie Irving has been in, to where I'm looking at it, but I'm not actually looking at it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not zeroing in on it as if he were a Laker or a team that I see all the time in the Western Conference, like Phoenix or something like that. So now, like, I know his game at this point. I've watched the finals enough. I've watched enough Cleveland games. I've watched enough of him in the highlights to know, okay, he's an amazing dribbler, amazing finisher. And then there's stuff attached to his name. And then there's, relationship with Kobe. And it's like, these things. But when it comes to teams that you don't watch, you don't really know the players like that. Not, unless you're just zeroing in on these teams. And even though he played a lot of games on national television, obviously, I wasn't checking for Cleveland like that. I wasn't checking for Boston like that. And the Nets either. I just so happen to fall on these teams. So for me, it's like, it's the first time I really actually get to look at what Kyrie's been up to in terms of zeroing in with this lens and say, from this mindset, with the basketball IQ that I've accumulated since I've really started this channel, now looking at Reed from different eyes, it's like, this is probably one of the 10 most talented players of all time. Like, literally. Like, even guys who have accomplished more, or guys who are bigger, who can do more on the floor, they don't have the skills he has. And if they harbor the skills, they're not able to reach in that bag as often as he is. And if they can reach in that bag as often, they can't have the poise to hit a big shot down the stretch of the game like Kyrie Irving hit against the Golden State Warriors to win that series. I understand exactly why LeBron James would welcome him back on the team from a strictly basketball standpoint. And I also understand why people like Brian Windhorst believe that he and Kyrie Irving play perfect basketball together, one of the best fits in the world. I don't know about best fits in the world because I'd have to acknowledge the second side of the ball. On the defensive side, I don't think they would come close to call themselves one of the best fits in the world or the best duos in the world. But what I can say offensively, it's proven they can win. It's proven that what they do is artistry that can get to multiple finals in a row and win the whole thing against the best of the best. Because when you consider who they beat, you consider that's one of the best teams ever be assembled. That's not just any NBA finals they won. That's the NBA finals against the Golden State Warriors. So when I look at what the Cleveland Cavaliers were built upon and how they managed to put together a team, I look at what we have already, and I say, well, we don't have as much shooting as they did, but we have more defensive bigs and wings and things of that nature to help us with this era. And so that I think we are in a place where if we add another shooter to the team that we have, coupled with these young players that we're finding out could probably develop into role players before the end of the season, we have the type of depth that will make us excited about making a run for the playoffs with that core that Cleveland had. So that's why I'm most on board with bringing those two and reuniting them back together. But even more so, I'm starting to respect Kyrie's game without the presence of LeBron James or Anthony Davis as a means of making me want to bring Reed in. Now, Reed's a player I'd want anyway, because like I told you guys in plenty of other situations before doing all this homework, that he's a showman and the Lakers need a showman. And if we're going to have a bad tenure, if Bron is going to leave, we're going to want players that are fun to watch, not just guys who are able to help us get out of the situation by being upside players and kind of being good. But you also want a showman, because we're the Lakers and we need showmen. So I look at players like McCoy on the team that we have in the summer league. I look at Kyrie Irving. Like, these are showmen. And I think those are assets for a Laker team who, if for some reason we're not able to have that massive draw with LeBron James, at least we will have showmen on the floor to give us that Laker dynamic that is fun to watch. And I think that's a very important dynamic to what our brand is about. I don't think we can put a team on the floor that's not fun to watch. We tried that back in the Mike Brown era. Some of them Kobe years were really tough, and that was the problem. It was just not easy to watch because the games just weren't fun. He had Kobe down there, but Kobe at the time, he was getting older, and it's kind of hard to be the only guy out there. You know what I mean? It wasn't always fun to watch. So I think if the Lakers go forward and find ourselves in a rebuilding era, it'll be dope to have showmen on the team. I think it could translate to victories if you build it correctly. It doesn't have to just be fluff and entertainment. A guy like Kyrie Irving, as I said, has been proven to have the poise to be a killer down the stretch of basketball games, hit shots, be efficient no matter what the clock says. So it's not like you're only picking him up to show. He's going to help you get victories and win championships if he's continued to be invested in. And so when he says words like believe in me with a capital N me, that's what comes to mind for me from a basketball standpoint. It's like, yeah, I do. We could talk about the person, the man, and all of that. Separate conversation, but let's talk about the basketball player. I do. I think as I learn about what it is he brings to the table, I know as long as I have defensive players around him, as long as I have a big down there that can help with easy buckets, easy situations, as long as I have wings that can defend and players that can complement him in the open court, and most importantly, players who can stay in rhythm when he gets in rhythm himself. And see, that's an important trait for a teammate of players who are going to garner so much attention. They're going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 plays in a row where it's in the team's best interest to let him cook because he's in a rhythm and he ain't going to miss. And so when you have players that thrive in those situations, who can stay poised, hot, and engaged in certain situations where there are 2 and 3, 4, 5 plays at a time where one guy is scoring, if we can create environments like that, we can get the most out of a player like Kyrie Irving. I really believe that. But if you have players that, constantly need their rhythm, they constantly need to take rhythm away from him. They constantly need the ball every couple minutes. They need to touch it. They need their shots. I don't know if that's the greatest fit for what I believe he ultimately is when you just zero in on what it is he can do for you. Now, durability is the most concern. Beyond the behavioral, whatever you consider that, for me, it's more about can he stay healthy, because that's the inconsistency, or rather the consistency that I've seen. It's durability for him. And there's nothing he can really do. You know what I mean? It's not like you want him to get all buff and all that. You want him to stay at himself, and you just want to put around him what ultimately help him do that. And I honestly, truly believe we have some of those pieces already. I think we have them. I look at some of those guards that we have, these youngsters. They're going to be able to run a lot. Pippen and Walker, and if we keep Kendrick Nunn and Austin Reeves, etc. We got so many guys to where I think this particular squad can endure if for some reason Reed needs to step away for injury or what have you. So it's all about how you build around him, man. I don't think that you can. I don't envision a scenario going forward where you build a good basketball fit for Kyrie Irving that he doesn't want to be a part of. Not after what this just was. Now, he could prove me wrong. Everybody's poised to be, in a space where they're expecting him to do unpredictable or choose unpredictable ways of going. But I do believe that if you just put a really good basketball fit around him, he'll play ball. I think the notion that he will disappear, it's fair, but I think it also has to take into account certain things that may have taken place specifically that would cause him to want to walk away from the game. And if you don't envision those things reappearing, then you have to take into account what else otherwise, you worry about in regards to pulling him away from the game. For me, it's just injuries. It's literally just injuries. If we're not bringing back the vax, I don't think anything else is going to keep him from it. I think choosing to step away from the game in the past has kind of caused him some of the troubles that he's having right now in a time where it's time to lock up for years and money. So I don't think he's going to want to necessarily prioritize everything else because it's not as much basketball ahead of him as it was at that time. At that time, he was in his 20s. He could see a 10, 15-year career ahead of him from there. So it's like, I'm doing what I got to do. Now, when you're in your 30s, it's like, nah, I can't really toy around with these people. Or maybe a different way of looking at it would be like, I only have but 5 or 6 more or 7 more years at the most to do this. So I can play ball, so to speak. Play ball as in dealing with the owners and whatever comes with it for 6 more years as opposed to when I was 27 looking at it saying, I got to deal with these people for 11, 12 more years, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So it's only a little bit of more time to dig in and just be a NBA guy. So at this point, I would imagine he would see that is something he'd want to do, But only he'll be able to let us know when the time comes to choose basketball if that's what would be best for him. So that's the only concern most people have. I just choose not to lean my hat on that concern. That's just ultimately where I am. If that makes me someone that is poised to be disappointed, it wouldn't be the first time in life. Sometimes you expect the best out of people and you just think they're going to show up, even though maybe in situations they weren't able to do that for others. But like I said, I think for me, if a vaccine does come back around, I'm going to expect him to walk away. You see what I'm saying? It's not going to catch me off guard like Brooklyn. Nope. No. Once we know, if they hit us with the Band-Aid, that's a triggering understanding that Reed is walking away. And Laker Nation needs to just not only be ready for that, but work that into your mind in such a way that's expected and you're embracing it already. You know what I mean? It's just going to happen. He's not going to take that thing. And so any team that takes on him should expect that is not going to be something that he comes off that hill. I don't think he's going to walk away from that. So whatever, I don't assume that I have the answer in regards to what it is he should do in this situation a year later, no different than I did the day that news came out. I don't know what's right. I don't. But what I can say is now that all of that is behind us, his talent is what I'm hanging my hat on. And I think that's what you're supposed to do when you're evaluating basketball players. You want to know they can play ball first. I think a lot of times we get so caught up in whether or not they're going to behave a certain way, whether or not they're going to be reliable, and all of those things must be carried forward. They must be held in a certain light. But I can also tell you can have great continuity, you can have wonderful culture and good teammates and a good vibe, so to speak, in your locker room. And if you don't have the talent to overcome people who are talented like Kyrie Irving, who are talented like KD, who are talented like LeBron, that continuity is just going to be something that helps console you through your loss. That's all it is. You know, we've been on the other side of that. We had Shaq and Kobe. Those guys were not getting along at the time. We were still beating the dog crap out of these teams with good chemistry and good continuity. Teams that did everything right, which is why they were on the other side of us. But when they ran into us, we flattened them. And that's because the talent was valued. Now, that chemistry must be valued. I don't get it twisted. It didn't last because we didn't have the chemistry, I think. Although it's a lot of reports about contract negotiations behind the scenes really being the driving force behind a lot of that. But otherwise, it didn't matter. The point is, you know, those guys weren't getting along and they were still knocking people off very easily without any concern. Now, they were unique because that was Shaq and Kobe. But the point is, they were going against teams that really, really had that chemistry going and may have chosen to step away from guys who might have been controversial. And they were happier losing a bunch of group because of it. So I think there needs to be a balance as to, yes, you want the best people you can find with great personalities, people you can manage and handle so that you don't have any question about whether or not you can keep them happy and that they will stay put and invest in you as a team and all those different things. You want those quality players. But if those wonderful personalities can't ball out, sorry, you still lost. You just got a really nice group of losers. So I want us to find a balance there. I want other teams to look for a balance there. I don't want teams to look at guys who have alternate personalities and see no solution for handling those talented players. I think the next step of evolution for organizations is to look into psychological support think tanks that allow for them to manage personalities that are not easily manageable. That is your solution. It's investing in the well-being and the minds and of these players. But when you do that, you have to understand the difference between providing support and trying to instill a doctrine or a code, so to speak, that allows them to behave the way you want them to behave. That's the energy that the NFL provides when they are supportive, from what I've seen. They damn near turn players into what they want them to be when they rehabilitate them, so to speak. I've seen it. I've seen it a million times. Guys go from being head cases to another version of what they were, that isn't a reflection of what they had been. And while they were easier to manage, but I think they changed them entirely. That's just how I view it. So I don't like that. I don't think athletes prefer that. I think athletes just need to be worked with. It's like I always say, be like water, man. If a guy's going to be swaying to the left, you need to be able to mold left with him. If a guy's going to sway to the right, you got to be able to sway right with him if you're an organization and want to keep his talent level, you know, in your organization. That's the key. It's like, if you want somebody this good, you can't, you know, turn him into what you want him to be. You got to be able to work with him. And so that's why I look at it as that's how you do it. You have to invest in learning about the players, who they are, where they come from, politics from which they believe in, as much as they want you in, obviously. And then you try to assist in that way. Instead of saying, you're a head case, I can't deal with you, fall in line. Maybe there's some resources that you can reach out and find to help work with the players so that they can feel more inspired to actively get back to playing the sport they love. Because that would have been the approach I think I would have taken if I had my mind about me and all of that good stuff. If I was in my meditative space and I was some big time billionaire that actually cared about these particular things. If I were all of that, that's how I approach Kyrie's situation. While he's off running, trying to figure out what he's feeling, I'm with a ready team of people who can help me understand how to deal with that, and then from there, how to welcome him back in with the support that he may need to help ingratiate him back into the system without my presence and my frustrations being visible to him. And that is key. That is key. If I can see the frustration in your eyes by the mistakes or the decisions that I've made, then that's going to create angst. And that right there can create a situation where I'm not as sorry to have done the things I did. I'm not as sorry to have disappointed you if you're disappointing me in that reaction. Now, I know that's a weird human trait, but it is what it is. A lot of times we don't care nothing about what we do, so long as we receive the energy that we can respect. And in receiving that energy, if we're just given the understanding of what it is that we may have done wrong, maybe we will consider what it means to change our ways and how that can benefit you, because we don't look at you as somebody who's antagonizing, but as somebody who we should be wanting to do better for. And that is just a point of view that doesn't have to change your opinion at all. It doesn't have to take away from your energy at all. It just makes it so that you're not giving that to the player because the situation is sensitive and you want their talent on your team. You just don't appreciate the choices that they've made, but you don't necessarily feel it's best to get rid of them, because when you try to get rid of them, voila, Brooklyn's reality today. So how do you keep from getting in that situation? By being more supportive of the player. How do you do that? By creating more of a avenue for which to understand that player, and that requires resources, and it also requires a lot of time and people who are in touch in ways that I don't have the answer for, but I just know the equation and what you got to find. You got to find ways of being able to connect with these players, support them during their time of need, so that they'll come back to you without having anger in their hearts about doing so. That would have kept Kyrie in a position to want to play basketball for you guys over time. KD would have stayed in place, all of that. You wouldn't have had to offer no 5 years because it wouldn't have been no angst between them. You could have offered them 3, explained those same issues, and probably would have had a different response. But because there was the presence of, I need to control you, and you not doing what I want you to do in the place, I think it created an environment where guys already had their defenses up and weren't willing to change, or weren't willing to look at how they can make different adjustments to ultimately acquiesce to the team as a whole. I think that transparency and that letting players in and respecting their limited time on the floor and what their interests are and all those different things is required. And I think from the players, it's a certain level of understanding of what the owners are responsible for and the headaches that they provide the owners as well, and how they have to work together in order to make the team win in their careers as best as it could be with the team. So all of these things is what I lend my voice to. All of this stuff is stuff I see from afar. All of this is not as simple as I make it sound, but I think it does not have to be simple. It just has to be something that's looked at in this way in order for players and owners to get along, in my opinion. You just got to work with each other. You got to respect each other, are human beings with mental health. Whether it be good mental health or bad mental health, the health is there, and it needs to be cultivated in a positive light. And so I think a lot of people are stressed given this situation, and I see a way for all that stress to not exist, and that is how. So I want to propose that, man, we got to invest in the mental health of people. It's not enough to just be aware of their mental health. We got to study it. We got to understand it a lot better than we do right now. I think a lot of people, and listening to pundits and stuff like that, they don't understand mental health. They don't know what's appropriate. They don't know what to look for. They don't know what not to. And they speak as if they understand. And that's just the natural way of doing things sometimes. But as we learn, we also know that there are other questions to ask. And as you learn other questions, they will help you understand how best to deal with the people who may struggle with different things like myself, or people who may be different and look at the world a different way, and so on. You have to work with them, not against them, if you want them to be eager to work with you, especially as it pertains to following certain rules that maybe they don't vibe with. So it starts with that relationship. And that is ultimately where it's at. So this is all of the thinking that came into why I want Kyrie Irving on my team, is because I believe that Jeanie Buss can provide that if the think tank that she has surrounding her will guide her in the right direction, and how best to continue on the path of greatness with this Laker organization. I think she can be the type of person who will find the resources necessary to help those situations. She's dealt with enough in regards to different types of people with different type of personalities, to where I'm pretty sure she would agree that there has to be some type of special way to approach these situations going forward that maybe hasn't been approached before. Because there's so much angst between players and organizations in these situations, and I don't think it can necessarily be worked out through the numbers soon enough to where everybody can be at peace, or at least work from a point of view that isn't like this. So until the next collective bargaining agreement there's no way to make it fair through the numbers. I'd say people need to start working with one another differently. Just from afar, that's what it looked like. So that's what I'm saying. I think the Lakers are a great place for Kyrie to come here and kind of get a taste of that if everything falls into place with the rest of the Laker organization in terms of opinion. Now, with that being said, I'm wondering now, some of the stuff I was talking about last night in regards to the Lakers and the leverage that we feel we have versus the circumstances that are appearing as new developments occur. I just think the urgency for the Lakers to get this done is still present, but you have to do it the right way nevertheless. But we do have a new urgency, given the fact that we've come to the conclusion that Kyrie Irving could in fact be attached to KD if the Nets did indeed find a trade partner that was overpaying for KD and wasn't satisfied with it. You understand what I'm saying? That was the theory that I had last night. If for some reason they find that they bring in KD back and they're not good enough, they've already spent for however much it costs to bring in KD's contract. How do you make it so that you supplement what you're losing? Well, in my mind, my theory is to bring in both of them. And so that's what I'm thinking. I think it's possible. I really legitimately think that's possible. The Lakers may want to close this deal, because if any other team gets a whiff of what it is that I just kind of came across in my mind, they may actually try doing that. And given that Kyrie is only on for 1 year, that increases the logic in terms of trading for him, because it is coming off the books and you can, in fact, trade it at the trade deadline to us, Lakers. So I'm not fully convinced Kyrie won't be making a stop somewhere else before becoming a Laker start the season. I'm not convinced of that. Because if I'm one of those teams that could use $36 million coming off of my books, or to use the plunder at the trade deadline for whatever strategic reasons, I might actually be willing to bring him in. Especially if KD's coming with him. I don't think they would sit out together. I don't. I think they would be more than happy to play anywhere for at least one season, and they figured out at the end of that season. If you know what I mean, if they get sent to Utah or something like that, I think it's possible they actually would play together. So if I think that's possible, I think other people may, and so that's the urgency. Manufactured, maybe, because this is just a tea leaf in my head, but yeah, it's there. So yeah, man, 32 minutes. I didn't know I'd been talking that long, but I hope everybody's enjoying what I'm saying, man. I like letting my brain go, and when it comes to basketball, I could certainly tag on another 30 minutes. But all in all, I just want us to invest in each other. And when I say each other, I mean players and owners. Nothing to do with myself personally, but just invest in both sides. The owners need to invest in the players, and the players need to see the fruit in working with the owners for the betterment of the future generations, of whom, even though it's very, very popular to think about ourselves and be selfish, now keeps coming. That's my new saying. Now keeps coming. And for an organization, you want to make sure that you have flexibility so that the new players that come around, whoever they are, will be in a position to be on your team. And for the other side of things, I think the players, it's like, it's such a treacherous environment once you step into it, and these guys are so damn young. Till it's one of those situations where you got to come in with your hard hat on, even as a kid. You got to come in ready for whatever in the NBA. You could be moving any second. You're gonna be on planes all the time. You could be one of those journeymen that hop around the league a million times. You could be one of those guys that stay on one team and make $500 million. There's a lot of different paths, but at the end of the day, only so much of it is within your control. What you can control, though, is your behavior. What you can't control is your work off the court and how hard you put into your craft in the moments that you're given. Regardless of your role, the moments that you're given, you can maximize those. And then, of course, if you're not one of those super athletes, take advantage of G League and different things that help make you a better player so you can continue on your journey toward your goal. I believe in that. Even for players that don't have the greatest of talent, I believe that where we're at with development of basketball and these different programs, anybody can turn into the best version of themselves basketball-wise if they're willing to put in the work and have those resources. So with that being said, I think we're going to find professionals in places we've never seen them before, and I'm hopeful that the game continues to grow in the way that it has. So all in all, that's my thoughts, man. Thank you guys for letting me vent. Thank you guys for doing what you do. Shout out to Kyrie Irving for instilling good energy into all of us with his posts. I know that people are sullying his name with things that may or may not be true. But at the end of the day, what I see is somebody who's trying to put out good energy, just like myself. And so that's what we vibe with, man. Keep manifesting your visions, everybody. Don't give up. You know what I mean? And look, man, I tell you, I believe in God. That's who I believe in. That's who I pray for, to every day, for all of you and for myself. And I think at the end of the day, when I have those prayers in my heart and when I'm consistent about my prayers, I'm hopeful that the people that I pray for can see great things happen for them. And as you guys know, Kyrie Irving is one of those people that I pray for daily. So with that being said, I'm a believer. I hope things work out, whether it's here in LA. This ain't necessarily about basketball. This is about just good energy, good vibes for human beings. And I'm wishing him well, man. I'm wishing him well. I'm wishing you well. I'm wishing the Lakers well, obviously, as a fan. I'm wishing the Nets well, a fan of the NBA. And I just want everybody to, and when I say everybody, every team, to be a vessel from which all basketball players that are talented can come through, have the best possible chance to win a championship, and have their names retired at the end if they earn that. That's what I want to see happen, man. That's what I want to see. I want everybody to get what they deserve in this league, monetarily, credit-wise, and I would like to see us promote the league in such a way that doesn't provide narratives and bad energy and bullying tactics and different things to keep the attention of the American public. I'd like us to grow so that we're not so enamored with that type of primitive energy, and get to a point where we're really focusing on the sport of basketball, because it provides plenty, as Draymond said. We don't need the narratives. We don't need to put each other down or discredit people who've worked hard for their whole lives to get to a certain point just because they didn't maybe beat the next guy who did the same thing. No. Let's zoom out and value the fact that these people are the best at what they do, and we only have them for a second or two. So stop all this nonsense with all this hating. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching.